In our next series of videos, we'll be learning about Git and version control so that we can start creating our online portfolio. We believe it's important to get started with this as soon as possible so that you'll be able to take a look at our code, share your code with other students, as well as share your code with instructors in case you run into problems. It's a lot easier for us to debug your problems if we're able to take a look at what you've actually done. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to need to learn to do is to navigate Terminal. In Terminal, and Terminal, which I have on my dock here, if for some reason you don't have it, you can go to Spotlight and search for Terminal as well. It should come up. Terminal is a nice graphical interface we can use to navigate our computer's folder structure. It's a gateway into the back end of Mac OS X, or if you're using Mavericks as well, and it allows you to enter commands directly into this Unix environment. It's similar to Linux, which uses Unix too. So if you have familiarity with Linux, this should be super easy for you. So why would we use this compared to Finder? Well, it's really powerful, and once you get going, it's really quick because we don't have to click on things. We can just type all our commands in here. It finds things really fast, and most developers use Terminal to navigate their file structure. So let's take a look at what we have in here in Terminal. The first thing we want to do is we want to figure out how to list all of the contents of the current directory we're in. So how do we do that? Well, we can type ls, which is the command for list. And what this is going to do, it actually stands for list files. And what we can do here is we see that we have a bunch of files in our current directory. Specifically, we have applications, downloads, movies, desktop, and we're probably pretty familiar with these if we've ever opened up a folder before. So maybe if we open up our folder, we see a lot of these items in our current folder right here. So we can change directory by using the cd command, change directory, and we can access, for example, our desktop. So let's type this in. Now, one really cool tip you can use is you can use the tab key in order to autofill here, and you can hit return. If two names are very similar, so like let's say you had music 1 and music 2, you would actually have to type in music 1 and music 2, but in this case, there isn't anything close to desktop, so we can just use that tab key to autofill and get the correct name here. So we now see that we're in a different directory here. We can see that our current directory is desktop, and that's because we cd'd or changed directory into our desktop. And we can type this ls command again, and we see that I have 5 files here. One's called Terminal. It's a little deceiving. I just kind of throw a lot of files in here. Downloads. I have just a folder I use and drop things other than the default downloads folder. It's just personal preference. Our postcard project, which we're most interested in, which is where we've been creating our project. We can even double click that and open that up. And we see our 2 image files. I like to download these and just throw them on my desktop. It's pretty easy to show you guys how to drag these into the project from the desktop. You might be saving these or leaving these in your downloads file. It kind of depends upon yourself, but your desktop might look really different. I've seen some crazy cluttered desktops. Maybe you don't have anything on your desktop, so maybe this is blank, but this is what mine looks like. And we can also create directories in Terminal. Now we can also do this by just kind of right clicking, going new folder, but we could also type make directory and mkdir, and let's call this projects. So we now see that it goes ahead and it creates this folder here, projects. And if we want to access this projects folder, right, we can cd into projects now. And you notice I've typed in ls again here pretty quickly. Sorry about that, I type a little quick sometimes. And what this does is it's shown us that right now this directory is blank. So, if your desktop was completely empty, you would have seen this as well, right? That, there wasn't anything in here until you created this projects folder. So right now this is completely blank. So in Terminal, we now see that I'm on Elliot's iMac, right? This is the name of the computer, right, that I gave myself, or my username. And we're in the projects directory. This is the current directory. And the current user is Elliot Arntz, right, which is me. So here, we can actually create a file in here. We are actually just going to create an empty file. And the way we can do that is touch, and we just type in test. And we now see that we have a blank file here. You can double click and open this. It's probably going to open this in your default text editor. But that's not really too interesting. Let's go back to our terminal here and continue to learn about terminal. So we want to cd into our test folder. So we can cd test. And we see right now that we get an error. And we see that cd test is not a directory. Well, we can't change into a file. We can only navigate into directories. So that's kind of important to remember. It's kind of important to understand how to navigate the file system for what we're going to be doing later with GitHub. So we can't cd into this file. We're at the uppermost file. Well, right now it kind of looks like we're in an empty file, right? We just have test here. But there's actually 2 other hidden directories within every directory. There's a minimum of 2. There can be more hidden directories. But let's figure out how we can see these directories. We're going to type in ls-a, and this -a is a flag that tells our terminal to print out all the files and directories, including the hidden ones. So let's hit enter here, and we see that we now have this dot, and we have test, right? So test is our file, but what is dot and dot dot? Well, dot represents the current directory that we're in. And what's our current directory? Well, remember, we're in the projects directory. And dot dot represents the directory directly above it. So we can actually go to our previous directory by typing in cd space dot dot and hit enter. And then we're on our desktop, right? Which makes sense, right? This is the desktop, and our projects folder is on our desktop. And we can even go up another level, right? Which is where we initially started, by typing in cd dot dot, and let's do ls again. This is the initial one that we saw. So this will be good if you guys go down too far a level and you want to go back up a level. Just remember cd space dot dot, and if you can't remember that, if you just remember ls space -a, you're gonna be able to see all of the hidden directories in the current directory. So we can even go farther up here. We can go cd dot dot again, and this takes us to our users, right? These are all the users on my current computer. And we can go even farther up and take a look at my iMac. So you might later get into issues where you need to adjust like your library or a bin. Maybe you've written a directory incorrectly there and you need to go ahead and remove it. But if you ever want to go back to root, all you have to do is simply type cd space, or just cd and enter. And if we type ls, we get back to our root here, right? So this is the root directory. And whether or not we navigate into a folder or we go to the super directory for the current directory, we can always get back to root by just typing cd enter. And there's a quick way we can figure out that we're in the root directory. This tilde here tells us that we're currently in the root directory. So the final thing we want to figure out how to do is how to remove directories and how to remove files. Right? And this is going to be handy. Sometimes you're going to have to remove an old version of something. Just really handy to know how to do this in terminal. So let's go ahead and figure out how to remove our test file, and then we'll figure out how to remove the projects directory. So let's cd back into our desktop. And again, we can ls if we're not sure where we're going. And let's cd into projects. And we can do ls again to get test here. And let's go ahead and remove our test. We're going to type rm for remove, and we can type test. And let's hit enter. And we see that it now has gone ahead and deleted this test file. Now we can do cd space dot dot to go up another level, and we want to remove the projects directory. So how can we do that? Well, we could type remove projects because our current projects directory, that's lowercase, is empty. However, if there were files in there, we could do rm space dash rf, and then we could type in projects, lowercase. And what this is going to do is it's going to remove the directory. It's also going to remove any files inside of the directory. And for those of you who are curious, -rf stands for recursive force. So if you're curious, you can do a little bit of reading on Google about this. But for now, just remember -rf will remove all of the subfiles or subdirectories for the directory you're trying to delete. So we can go ahead and hit enter, and we see that it's now gone ahead and removed the projects directory from our desktop. So this is just a basic overview of terminal. There's quite a bit you can do in here. You can download files. You can move files around, you can copy files, tons and tons of stuff you can do. Anything you can do with the graphical interface here, you can also do with terminal. And we really recommend that you spend a little bit of time, you figure this out, because it's really easy to be precise in here. It's quicker, assuming you get a little bit more advanced here. In terminal, Thankfully, there are a lot of graphical interfaces we're going to be able to use, but we recommend this. It's kind of the pro way of doing things, so definitely check out Terminal.